Chapter 8. Dr. Johnson, who seems to have thought of everything, once observed that the grand object of all travel is to see the shores of the Mediterranean, in which he no doubt included the Adriatic. And certainly our cruise down the Dalmatian coast and in and out among its fringing islands confirmed his words. It was a sea idyll. The summer was at its height, but on the deck of the San Paolo there was always a breeze, and the nights were cool. The towns we stopped at were highly picturesque, full of color and rich in historical interest. In each of them we carried on our several researches, Miss McAllister zealously hunting for tiles and bowls, Tish keen on ancient coins and medals. I pursued my inquiry into the nautical vocabulary of those waters, and Mr. McAllister scoured the antique shops for manuscripts. We all kept our ears open for information about the Black Sea, especially its eastern shore. It is at Spalato, the old palace and birthplace of Diocletian, which they now call Split, that matters began to develop. After a fascinating day among its remains, we had returned to the boat for tea, and thus fortified, sought out the curio stores of the place for some shopping along our special lines. Tish went with Mr. McAllister, while I escorted his sister. We, on our part, were not particularly successful, but at dinner, where we all compared notes, Mr. McAllister and Tish were fairly bursting with news. "What do you think we found?" the latter cried, the moment we were all seated and picking up our napkins. "Mr. McAllister has discovered another manuscript." "With our Colophon in it," chimed in our host. "At least it looks like it," Tish qualified. "But it's been blacked out," he continued. "As though somebody had tried a reagent on it," Tish contributed. "But then how do you know it's our Colophon?" I found breath enough to say. "Well, of course we're not perfectly sure," Tish admitted. "But from what's left to read, along the edges, it looks like it to me. But you must see it yourself as soon as dinner is over." "Do you mean to say you've got it?" Miss McAllister asked excitedly. "Of course we've got it," her brother assured her. "We wouldn't leave such a leading document about for someone else to find and perhaps read. But if it is what we think it is, what does it mean?" "That's a good question." "Nothing very good, I should say," I answered. "It makes the possibility that someone has got in ahead of us into a probability, I suppose. Somebody else took the hint of the upper Colophon and went after the underwriting, just as we did, only less skillfully. He must have used the Gioberti reagent that brings up the palimpsest for a few hours or minutes and then plunges it into deeper darkness than ever. I wonder if the ultraviolet lamp would work after that Gioberti stuff has blackened the parchment," said Tish meditatively. "Do you suppose it would still bring up the underwriting?" "It might, I think. Anyway, it would be worth trying. But I don't suppose there are any such lamps along the Dalmatian coast, still less Albania." "But there's Athens ahead," cried Miss McAllister. "They must have all sorts of such contrivances there, I should think." "That's a fact, Marcia," said her brother approvingly. "We might find one there, and as we have the manuscript, we could just take it wherever the lamp is and have a go at it ourselves. That is, if it looks to you worthwhile," he added, turning to me. "Oh, emphatically worthwhile," I replied. "And what a score to have the text of 2 Colophons in our possessions to go by." "Yes, isn't it?" said Miss McAllister. "It almost gives you title to the treasure when you find it, doesn't it?" "I'd like to think so," said I, "but you can't be sure what the present incumbent will have to say about that." In fact, I had pondered over this very point of ownership a good deal. Suppose we found the treasure in some native's hands. How could we decently get it away from him? But that matter could wait until we knew it existed. Dinner was eaten in some impatience by all of us, for we all wanted to get at the new manuscript. "Isn't it extraordinary, its turning up here? Or rather, our barging into it in this out-of-the-way place?" said Tish. "If you hadn't taken us on," she added to Mr. McAllister, "we never would have found it." "And it would have meant nothing to us," he rejoined. "It certainly is a fortunate combination that brought us here to find it." With such mutual felicitations, dinner was finally brought to an end and cleared away, and Mr. McAllister brought out the manuscript. Miss McAllister and I put our heads together over it, at first with some disappointment. The gentleman with the reagent had certainly made copious use of it. He seemed to have covered every line, with the result that every letter was completely blackened. The general length of the obliterated Colophon, however, did pretty much correspond to that at St. Gall's, But what made the identity with our Colophon practically certain was that the upper writing was still faintly legible through the black. It was reasonable to suppose that the underwriting, too, was like ours. "The curse comes out strong, anyway," said Miss McAllister jocularly, after I had read the upper writing to her. This brought a slight frown to Tish's face. "We seem to run to curses," she observed. We hastened to reassure her. "Curses? You must not be troubled by curses," said our host. "They are simply the refuge of impotence. If you cannot really injure your enemy, you curse him." "Still, there was that woman in Pola," said Tish stoutly. "But what did she accomplish?" I argued. "She made a little money off Mr. McAllister here, but she did not delay our sailing as much as an hour, did she?" "Of course, it was unpleasant while it lasted," Miss McAllister put in. "That's so. But what a story to tell ever after. Why, the professor here can now interpret the Odyssey by it, and make Ulysses' sufferings all seem quite actual and modern." "Well, perhaps so," Tish admitted reluctantly. "But where did the manuscript come from, and who has been doing these things to it? Did the dealer know? I suppose he wouldn't tell if he did." "That," said Mr. McAllister, "is the strangest part of it. The dealer could not remember where he got the manuscript. As you say, they seldom can. But when we pointed out this blackened page, he was very much astonished and declared that he had not noticed it before. In fact, he thought it must have been done very recently. After racking his memory for a while, he seemed to recall that he had lent one of his manuscripts, it might have been this one, to a couple of young Greeks that wandered in one day, and he thought they might have done the deed." "Did he know their names or addresses?" I was impatient to know. "Well, he thought he had written them down somewhere when he let them have the manuscript. Anyway, they were staying at the principal hotel here, the Minerva, which was one reason why he had supposed they must be all right. And they did bring back the manuscript, you know. Well, that was something, of course. They did not actually make off with his book or even steal the leaves out of it, but they certainly treated it pretty freely for a borrowed book," said I, gazing ruefully at the blackened paragraph. "It was really a good thing from our point of view," said Tish hopefully, "for it was the blackened paragraph that caught our eyes as we ran through the man's manuscripts. And we thought of what you had said about the use of reagents on palimpsest and took a closer look at the thing, after which Mr. McAllister simply bought it, thus protecting it from any further Greeks at any rate," said the gentleman. "A good stroke, certainly," said I. "But when did this happen? And what were the Greeks like? Could you get any details?" "They appeared in Split at his shop a few weeks ago, sometime early in the summer, I should say. As for their looks, they were just regular young Greeks, and students, he was sure. He couldn't say anything more than that." "Then they may have been on the spot by this time," I admitted reluctantly. "That is, supposing their reagent really brought out the underwriting," said Tish. "But it may not have. Or they may not have been able to identify the place it mentioned. Or, after getting there, they may not have succeeded in getting possession of it. Oh, I can see lots of bets they may have missed," she concluded hopefully. "Anyway, it has put us on our guard and provided us with a full text of both Colophons, if we can still make out the under one," I philosophized. "And that when we find out when we get to Athens, I hope." "I suppose it's a very superstitious question," said Miss McAllister diffidently. "But if these Greeks found the underwriting early in the summer, didn't they read it before you did? And so don't they have claim on the curse, so to speak? I mean, they really did incur it, strictly speaking, by reading the underwriting, didn't they? I know Parthenius didn't precisely say so, but his curse was evidently meant chiefly for the first ones to read his Colophon, don't you think so?" "Why, possibly," said Mr. McAllister thoughtfully. "You mean those Greek chaps would get the brunt of it, whatever it was?" That thought to relieve Letitia's fears, I should think, even after the Witch of Pola. He finished smiling understandingly at Tish. "I think so too," I hastened to add, "whatever the curse amounted to anyway. Its effects must have been greatly mitigated by this Greek mix-up, and they deserve it too, for they certainly tricked the poor old dealer here and rather spoiled his manuscript with their chemicals." "Perhaps we shall run across them in the course of our cruise," said Tish. "It would be interesting to compare notes with them." "Maybe we ought to combine with them and pool our efforts," said Miss McAllister. "I don't think so," said her brother. "They certainly treated that dealer pretty badly, borrowing his manuscript instead of buying it. It was not expensive, and he was certainly worth the price to them. They apparently haven't much in the way of resources or scruples either. I think it would be a mistake to form an alliance with them. They might play tricks on us, just as they did the dealer. And in this manuscript game, as I see it, everything has got to be above board. We don't plan to steal anything or to cheat anybody. Of course not, said Tish readily. Still, I think it would be all right to outwit these Greeks if we can manage it, in which we all concurred. The upshot of our conference was that we would go on with our adventure and handle our rivals as circumstances might dictate. We had at least this advantage over them. We knew they were in the game. They could not possibly know that we were too.